Today on The Catholic Guide, we're going to talk about how do we experience and invite the presence of God into our lives. This is a powerful message, and I believe it'll bless you. Today I want to talk to you about something that's really come right out of my heart and is right where I am right now. This is right, a very current word, something that I feel like God is speaking to me in my life right at this minute. And if He's speaking it to me, well, I'm going to share it with you. And you can acknowledge this as well in your own life. Well, when I was a teenager, I was invited by a Catholic priest to go to a prayer meeting. I didn't know what a prayer meeting was. He just came and said to me, he said, come to this thing, and he invited me. And when he invited me to come, he said, if you just come. And I used to go, and there was all these people that were there. And all these people would turn up, and they would sit in a circle, and they would talk about God in their life, and they would pray. And what they would do is they'd sing 2 or 3 songs, and then someone would stand up and do some notices, and then being good Catholics, they would take up a collection, and then someone would stand up and they would read from the scriptures, they would share about the teaching of the church, and then what they would do is that they would then invite people to commit their life to Christ. And I remember I prayed this prayer, and he used to call it a surrender prayer. This prayer of surrender to God, where I said to God, God, I want you at the center of my life. I give myself over to you. I'm going to make you in charge. You do with me whatever you want. And I remember I had my eyes closed, and I remember this amazing sense of peace, this sense of all of a sudden, this sense of, I know who God is. And I remember opening my eyes and this sense of being completely and utterly convinced and being in this place of a relationship that was completely brand new, and this sense of amazing peace in my life. And want to know something? No one's ever been able to take that away from me. Well, I want to read a story in the Bible about someone who has an encounter with God, and people question it, and he can't explain it, and all he says in the end is, I know what happened to me. And I want to ask this question of everybody. Can you say, I know what happened to me? Or are you just a church attender? Or are you just someone who turns up because you have that sense, I'm meant to turn up? Or is there something more? This week, I was home by myself, and I came back from being away, and Rosemary wasn't home. And what I did was, I realized I didn't have anything to eat. And so I decided I'd go to the shops, but I'd come off the plane, and what I did was, in coming off the plane, I got changed. And when I got changed, I then decided, well, now I'll go down and wearing a different set of clothes, I'll go down to the shops. And I walked into the shops, and as I walked into the shops, there was all the food in the whole world was there. Everything was there, everything that would satisfy me and nourish me. But there was one problem. I forgot my wallet. And what happened was I had to turn around because they wouldn't let me have anything. I went up, I filled the trolley, and I said, I want to go anyway, and they wouldn't let me take anything. And you know what? I think many of us turn up to church, and many of us turn up to God, and we come to God, and there's something missing. It's all there. And we miss it because we're missing bringing one thing, which I'm going to tell you about by the end of this today. And if you get this one thing, this will change you so deeply as it did me. If you get this one thing, and most people miss it. Well, let's go to John chapter 9, verse 1. John chapter 9, verse 1. If you've got the NRSV Bible, it's on page 1044. If you've got the VCE version, it's on page 1004. And I'm going to read bits of it, explain bits of it, and the camera people will afterwards tell me, did you have to read so much? And I'll say to Justin, yes, I did. Right? Anyway, here we go. Chapter 9, verse 1. And it said, and I can see them all smiling, and as he walked along, he saw a man blind from birth. As Jesus walked along, he saw a man blind from birth. And his disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? And Jesus answered, neither this man nor his parents sinned. He was born blind so that God's work might be revealed in him. Now, before I go on, I mean, we could spend a whole night on this bit, but I can't spend the whole time here. But I just want to make a comment. Is the disciples turn around and they say to him, "Who's blind? Or why is he blind? Who sinned?" And he says, "Well, no one sinned." Jesus says, this is I'm going to use this so that God would be revealed. See, many of us in our lives, what we want to avoid the problems in our life and the tragedies in our lives. One of my daughters this week is working for a company, and the company's just been bought out by someone else. And she's in marketing, and there's 14 people in the marketing, managers in the marketing department, and they came along this week and they said, "We only want 4. Everyone else is sacked. You have to all compete against each other now for these 4 jobs." And she's just signed up for a home, and all of a sudden she's found herself with the possibility that she's not going to have a job. She's not the most senior person there. So she said to me, "I think." Well, that, and what if Jesus was there, he would say, "This is, my glory is going to shine through this. I'm going to reveal myself through this." I can tell you times when I myself have lost jobs, when things have not gone well, and in every case there's pain, but if you trust in God, he brings you to another place and he uses it for his glory. And so the disciples say, "Why is this guy blind? Did someone sin? Did someone do something wrong?" And Jesus said, No. This is so that my glory is going to be revealed. And so right now, where in your life might you be going through struggle so that God's glory will be revealed in your life and in other people's lives? Makes you think about your problems differently. If you trust. Well, keep reading it. Let's jump down to verse 6. There's a lot to go, so I'm going to skip a bit so we don't read it all. When he'd said this, he spat on the ground and made mud with the saliva and spread the mud on the man's eyes, saying to him, "Go wash in the pool of Siloam," which means sent. And he went and washed and came back able to see. The neighbours and those who had seen him before as a beggar began to ask, "Is this not the man who used to sit and beg?" Now they then have a problem because this man is now able to see. But the problem is they didn't know how to recognise him. Because he'd had this encounter with God, and all of a sudden, because he'd encountered God, he had become different. Something had happened to him. Something that was really dramatically different. And so in verse 9 it says, some were saying, is it he? Is this the blind guy? Others were saying, no, but it's someone like him. And he kept saying, no, I'm the guy. I'm the man. You can imagine, there's this argument going on, and he's standing right there, and someone goes, "It's not him." Some saying, "It is him," and he's standing there, "No, it is me, really." And someone goes, No, and he's saying, "It is." But he'd had this encounter, this encounter with God. And verse 10, it says, "But they kept asking him, 'Then how were your eyes opened?' In verse 11, he answered, 'The man called Jesus made mud, spread it on my eyes and said, "Go to Siloam and wash." And then I went and washed and received my sight." That's all he could say. So how did this happen? Guy came, put mud on my eyes, said, "Go wash your face." That was it. That's a bit ridiculous, really. It's not very scientific, is it? How you went from blindness to sight, how did that happen? Guy said, "Put mud on my eyes, go wash." He couldn't explain anything else. And so have a look at verse 12. Jump down to verse 12. And then he said to him, "Where is he?" They said to him, "Where is he?" And he said, "I do not know." And they brought to the Pharisees the man who had formerly been blind. They bring him to the religious police, you might say. And now it was the Sabbath when Jesus made the mud and opened his eyes. And then the Pharisees also began to ask the blind man, him, how he had received his sight. He says it again. He said, "He put mud on my eyes, and then I washed, and now I see." That's it. That's all he can answer. In verse 16, some of the Pharisees said, "This man is not from God, for he does not observe the Sabbath." Because he'd done it on the day when they're not meant to work. But others said, "How can a man who's a sinner perform such signs?" And they were divided because Jesus' action had confused them. So they said again to the blind man, "What do you say about him? It was your eyes he opened, And he said, is he a prophet? He said to him, he's a prophet. The Jews didn't believe that he'd been blind and received his sight until they called the parents of the man who'd received his sight and asked them, is this your son who you say was born blind? How then does he see? Now, people who don't believe in God or believe that God does things need evidence. People who've encountered God don't need any evidence. But people who aren't sure about God need evidence, and that's understandable. Verse 20. His parents answered, we know that this is our son, yep, that's him, and that he was born blind, but we do not know how it is that he sees, nor do we know who opened his eyes. Ask him. He's of age. He'll speak for himself. So mum and dad come along and say, yep, he's blind, but we don't know how he sees. So look at verse 21. So for the second time, the Pharisees, they called the man who had been blind, and they said to him, give glory to God. We know that this man, Jesus, is a sinner. And the blind man answered and said, I do not know whether he's a sinner. One thing I do know, that I was blind, now I see. They said to him, what he did to you, how did he open your eyes? He answered, the blind man answered them, I've told you already, and you would not listen. Why do you want to hear it? Do you also want to become his disciples? And when he said that, if you continue to read the story, which I'd encourage you all to do, they get very angry at him for saying, no, we don't want to be his disciples. But have a look at verse 25. The blind man had an encounter. Look at this on the screen. The blind man answered, I do not know whether he's a sinner. One thing I do know, that though I was blind, now I see. This guy is saying what I said. People have said to me, when you were young and you had that time when that Catholic priest prayed for you and you encountered Jesus and you opened your eyes and everything was different and you've ever been different ever before. So many people have said to me over the years, well, that was just made up. That was just a bit, you must have been, a bit emotional or something. No, that changed my life. You can argue with me all day, but I know what happened. And no one can take my encounter away from me. And that's what this blind man is saying. This formerly blind man was not smart, probably. He was not as well educated as all the Pharisees and the religious leaders. But this blind man was saying one thing, I know what happened to me. I was blind, now I see. That's all I can say. What he knew is what he knew. What he knew is he knew. I was blind and now I can see. I cannot explain it. You can ask me 10,000 times and my answer will be the same. Yeah? My answer will be the same. In other words, he had an encounter with Jesus that so changed his life that he was never able to be different again. He was never able to be different again. How do we encounter God? In a way that is so profound, that so changes us and so changes the context of our life. Or are we like the people, or we like me, turn up to the shops, all dressed, everything ready to go, but I don't have the one key thing I need to access everything that's there? How many people go to church? How many people say their prayers even? How many people even read their Bibles and somehow don't unlock the power, the presence, the encounter with God in their life? Well, in 2 Chronicles chapter 7, have a look at this. It says this: if my people who are called by my name humble themselves, pray, seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and heal their land. Right? And so this is at the blessing of the temple. And Solomon has prayed this prayer, God, would you come? Would you bless us? Would you do all these things? And God says, I will if you do these 4 things. If you humble yourself. And what does it mean to be humble? Humble means I know who I am, what I can do, and what I can't do. For example, I can't grow hair on my head. I've tried, just doesn't work. No. When I start, I know what I can do and what I can't do. Some of you are just naturally gifted. There are some people here who are like me who lack that gift. Just can't do it. You know? And so to humble ourselves is to say, I know that you are God, and this is me, and here's me. Every time when I pray, I start my prayer pretty much always with, God, you're God, it's me. You're everywhere, and I'm here. You're in the past and you're in the future. I'm just now. I'm not over there and I'm not over there. I'm just here. You understand all things. I understand some things. In other words, I always come before God and humble myself before God and say, God, if you don't, I can't. That's what it means to be humble. But yet the world is so much into being proud, isn't it? This world is so much into we can do things ourselves. But that's not what the Scripture says in the way we approach God. Right? Secondly, it says that we should pray. Well, we all know what prayer is. Prayer is talking to God. Prayer is being present to God. Prayer is listening to God. Prayer is saying your prayers. And I got that. And then it says if you want God to come, if people will turn from their wicked ways. What's wicked ways? A good way of saying wicked ways is to say, if I will turn from doing the things that I know I shouldn't do. Is there anything you do that you know you shouldn't do? None of you here would be like that. But in other places, there are people who do things that they shouldn't do. I'm sure no one here. You know what that means. And then there's this phrase that says, if you seek my face. What a strange phrase. If you seek my face. Well, when I read that, I thought, well, I'm going to go study what seek my face means. What seek my face means. I get what prayer is. If it was just, if you pray, I get that. But what does it mean to seek my face? And then when I began to look at it, what I realized was that the whole of the Bible is littered with this phrase, seek my face. Wouldn't it be good here right now, if not just we're good people here, good people watching, if right now we would experience the presence of God in such a way that God walked in the building? Wouldn't that be an amazing place to be? You know? And yet through history we've seen it. See the key is this. The key is this. I turn up to the shops, all dressed up to buy. I've got in my mind what I want. It's all there. I fill the trolley. They won't let me take it home because I didn't take my wallet. What's the key to unleashing the manifest presence of God? You know what it is? It's hunger. It's hungering for God. It's desire. It is that longing within that says, I want this more than anything else. The church, us, so often we're more concerned about chasing the blessings of God than God. We're more concerned about chasing the power of God doing something than God. We want God's provision more than sometimes we want God. Because in the end of the day, everything else fades out. But what will remain is God. And I don't know about you, but I want the power of God in my life. I want the presence of God in my life. See, because there's a question that all of us have to ask. All of us. Do you believe in God or do you believe God? And they're different. Do you believe in God or do you believe God? I think huge numbers of people believe in God. But believing God is different, because believing God is believing that what He said He will do, He will do. And He promises that if you seek me, I'll come. He promises that I'll come to your situation, your tragedy, your good times, your hardship. He promises that He will come. He promises that he will come. He promises. But the key is hunger. That's the wallet. That's the credit card. That's the thing that would allow me to take it out. How many of us turn up to church and we sit down and we pray, pay, and maybe obey? How many of us hunger for God? How many of us walked in the doors of here today? How many of us turned on the internet or sat at our computers or our television sets and turned this on and just thought to ourselves, maybe the presence of God will scream through the screens to me today and pervade into my heart. And more than what this guy is saying to me, I'll be left with the presence of God. Because surely that's more important than anything I've got to say. It's God we want. But we have to have a desire for God. Have a look at this in the Bible in Matthew chapter 5. In Matthew chapter 5, verse 6, in the Beatitudes, it says this: "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled." Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are those who thirst and hunger for God, for all that is pure, for they will be filled. For they will be filled. Jeremiah, in the book of Jeremiah, we read this other beautiful scripture that says, the people of Israel, they've been cast into slavery and exiled, and they're kind of saying to God at this point in time, the whole context is, God, come on, bring us back. And God says to them, no, you're going to pay out the whole of the penalty that you're paying. And then he says, but I know the plans I have for you. And then he says this verse in verse 13. Have a look at this on the screen. When you search for me, you will find me if you seek me with all your heart. The doorway to the manifest presence of God is hunger. The key is our desire for the presence of God in our lives. That's what will grow any church community. That's what will touch our children, our parents, our husbands and our wives, our friends. The manifest presence of God. People are not looking for talented people anymore. They need something more because there's so many talented people in our world. Our technology is so fabulous today. The only thing that can trump all of that is God himself. And imagine if we as a group of people, imagine if everybody who's watching, where you are personally or with others, you began to make a decision that we want the manifest presence of God. We want the presence of God, and we're going to seek after him. We're going to seek after him. And the very first step of seeking after God, the very first step is this, is to say, God, I believe you are here. God, I believe you are here. God, I believe you are here. The second step is to say, and I am open to you. I believe you're here. I'm open to you. It is being open to God and responding. And then that hunger that says, I will do what I have to do in order that I would experience you. Prayer has changed my life and connected me to God in a personal way that I could never have imagined. Do you ever feel stuck? Not sure what to do when it comes to prayer? You want to pray. You feel you should pray, but you aren't sure how, because I did. There are many ways to pray, but as I say, that didn't help me because I just didn't know what to do. But then I met some great people who knew some of the secrets of prayer. They taught me a way to pray and to do it in a manner that was simple and yet powerful. So I wrote a book that I call Personal Prayer for the Everyday Person, about prayer, that has come out of years of putting into practice what I was taught by spending time with God. It's helped me to be close to God in the good times of life. It's helped me to find out and take the next step in life, and it's allowed me to experience the comfort and wisdom of God in those times of unspeakable tragedy that happens to all of us. I started praying as a teenager, and I'm still praying now. And no matter my age, personal prayer has changed my life, whether I felt close to God or far away. Well, I would love to share this book with you as I have with thousands of other people. Prayer will bring you into an encounter with God where you will experience God's presence wherever you are. Personal prayer has changed my life. I guarantee it will change yours, and you can do it every day right now. Personal prayer can be your prayer. It's talking to God and listening to God. Personal prayer will teach you the secrets to effective prayer that will draw you closer to God in your everyday life. Join me. It's powerful, it's simple, and you can do it. And if you call today to get this incredible book on the breakthrough secrets and habits of prayer, I also want to include my book, Begin Again, which will show you how to take your life to the next level. Each copy of Begin Again is personalized with your name or the name of a friend or loved one right on the cover. I believe that God has called me to reach those who are far away from Him and those who are not part of a church community, and bring renewal and vitality to Christians and Catholics around the world by sharing what I've learned about knowing and experiencing God's power in our life. Nothing could be more important, and that's why I need your help today. It's time to come back to faith. It's time to come back to the church. It's time to come back to God. Remember, personal prayer and Begin Again go hand in hand in our walk and journey in life and with God. Now here's my announcer to tell you how to get your copy of these two books.
Prayer is powerful and invites you into an everyday relationship with God that touches us at the center of our lives. Prayer is what transforms our lives and the lives of those we know and love. With your gift of $30 or more, we would like to send you a copy of Personal Prayer for the Everyday Person by Bruce Downs, the Catholic Guy. Or, as a sign of Bruce's appreciation for helping take this message of personal prayer to the world, with a gift of $50 or more, today we would also like to include a personalized copy of Bruce's book, Begin Again, starting from the place where you are. Prayer is the key and will change your life. It will even help you begin again from the place where you are. Personal prayer and Begin Again go hand in hand. Don't wait. Call us on 855-465-5161. Our operators are standing by to take your call, or you can visit us online at thecatholicguy.tv.
The Bible tells us that when we have needs, that we should come to our friends and we should ask them to pray for us. Well, sometimes finding people to pray for us can be a little difficult. So why don't you write to me on the addresses on your screen, and I and my prayer team, the people who pray for me, will join with you in asking God to be fantastic in your situation. Now, if you didn't get to church this week, or you just don't think you can go right now, and you know the reason for that, I want you to know this: God wants to be present in our life. God is present in our life, whether we feel far away or whether we feel particularly close. I also want to encourage you to get a copy of the Bible. The scriptures will change your life. As you know, in every program, I give the reference and the page number to make it easy to find. You won't read another book as powerful as this book. It will transform you. Call now and get your copy if you don't have a copy of the scriptures. Well, that's it. We'll see you next time. And remember, wherever you are around the world, God is never far from you.
This program was paid for by the friends and partners of Bruce Downs Ministries.